Hi, this is Trevor, and I'm back with another, well, I guess I say another, but it's really just my second restoration. Today we have a 1964 Chevy Impala four-door sedan made by Lesney and Matchbox in England or the UK back in the good old days. First step is to try to drill it out. I just try to be careful putting in the vise because these old ones feel a little more fragile. It's got two rivets. I just kind of use the weight of the drill and gravity to allow it to, start drilling it out. And I, try to just kind of hold it steady with my hands. And here I'm upsizing the drill bit because the drill bit I was using was maybe a little bit too small. But I felt like the smaller it is, the better it is, right? To not destroy it. Here we repositioned it because we want it to be in the middle of the vise. Luckily, in my basement, there's a vise. Just happens to be a little workshop and a vise in the basement, and not necessarily mine. But as long as I clean up after myself, it's not so bad. And I picked this car because in hip hop culture, the 1964 Impala is just king, and I grew up throughout the late 80s and the early 90s, and when I was in high school in particular, I don't know that I really love rap music or anything crazy like that, but it was pretty prevalent at the time, and every video had one of these cars in it. And of course they were all convertibles and two doors and stuff. This car is in pretty good shape. The windshield is cracked. When I bought it on eBay, it was, a great deal, and the photos were really blurry, and I didn't realize it was going to be the windshield was going to be as cracked up as it is. So this is actually the only time I've ever ordered restoration parts, because I did a bunch of these at the same time, and I've been working on them, and most of them I try to get things that had good parts or parts that were salvageable, and this one I have to go with it. I don't really like the tow hook. It's a little bit warped anyway. I'll probably cut the tow hook off. I'm not going to repaint it as a taxi cab. I just want to, I said hip hop culture, but even in muscle car culture, this thing is, 64 Impala. All the 60s cars were just, Impalas are really great cars. They're really cool. We all wish we had like a real one, but we don't. So yeah, this guy had a little driver in it. It's number 20. And we're going to try to just kind of pry this base up with two really small screwdrivers. Hopefully we can be pretty gentle with it and get it to separate. I probably should have made this one a little bit faster speed. But this would be my first Matchbox restoration because the last one I did was a Hot Wheels. So the front just pops right out, which is great. And the back I had a little more trouble with, you'll see. I tried not to, I guess I didn't have trouble with it. Maybe I had to drill it a little more, I don't know. But it's got the little suspension unit in it. The base is in really great shape, so I'm not going to completely restore the base. We're going to clean it up with the wire brush. Going to clean up the wheel end, the ball ends on the wheels. I'm not even going to take the wheels off because it's in actually pretty good shape. The windshield and the paint are the two things that are in terrible condition. But the interior is good. I'm not going to repaint the interior. We're just going to clean it up, and here I am just trying to figure out how everything kind of pops out and stays in place, and so as not to destroy it. My father, when I was growing up, had a lot of these really old first series Matchbox cars. Some of them didn't even have interiors in them. And this would have been the mid 1980s, and he made the mistake of kind of pulling them out of the case and letting me looking at them. And of course, as a kid, it's a toy and I want to play with it. So this was not one of his, but it kind of reminds me of the ones that he had, because he did have like a 59 Impala that was probably in really pristine shape that, I was probably pretty gentle with it, nice to it, because I thought it looked cool. I thought it looked like the Batmobile because it didn't have a Batmobile toy yet. Here I was just hand using a drill bit and just kind of, coaxing that rivet a little bit to get it to pop this windshield out. You can see a chunk of the windshield stayed in the frame. So it definitely needs that restoration part. Here are the parts after it was taken apart. But back to my dad's collection, some of them I was nicer to because they looked classy. He had a Thunderbird, I remember, like a 58 Thunderbird. And he had the Ford Fairlane police car. And I think he had the Pontiac convertible. And I think I shattered the windshield on that Pontiac convertible because these old ones are a little more fragile. And, I don't think I knew any better. I was a little kid. But I remember him being slightly mortified when he, saw that I had like dinged the paint on some of them and that they weren't, the perfect models that he bought them, when he was a kid because they were models, they were meant to be collected. And of course I had them as a little kid, not so much for that reason. So one of the reasons I bought this Impala was for that, was kind of, because it reminded me of my dad. And he taught me a lot of kind of modeling tricks as a kid because he does model railroading and has kit bashed and has restored things and has made things, modified things and customized things. And so yeah, this felt like a good hobby to get into kind of later in life for me to kind of restore some of these slightly more vintage die-cast little cars. Here we are cleaning it up with the wire brush. I use a brass brush because I didn't want to scratch the casting too much. It was they were pretty clean and they're really detailed and everything. So here I even washed the cracked windshield just in case the new windshield didn't show up or showed up and didn't fit. And there's the suspension unit and the interior's already in there. And we just kind of use a little bit of Dawn soap and an old toothbrush and kind of clean it up. Here I found that the steering wheel popped forward and the guy popped out. Not really things that I knew right off the bat, but there they were. And as I was doing this restoration, I would watch other people's restoration videos on this particular Matchbox car, and I kind of found out that they were doing things. So here's like a kind of the one I'm modeling it after, but here's a 64 two-door, great muscle car, very cool car. And the next one here is just a four-door, kind of modeling after this too. I'm kind of going with this kind of pink color. And again, I think four-doors are really cool cars. I know they're not sought after as muscle cars or whatever, but I think that they're, probably more available to, middle-class dudes that just want a nice old car. I don't want a nice old car. And here's, of course, a lowrider. Some people would think this is like sacrilege, but I always thought they were really cool as a teenager. They just the detail that goes into painting a car like that is just crazy. So here's Tamiya, ultra fine surface primer or fine primer or something, just standard kind of whitish gray, and we hit it a few times, hit the inside of the doors, made sure that it was in pretty good shape. And this is a day or two later. We hit it with a Tamiya kind of pink, not really baby pink, not really hot pink, but kind of in between. Kind of, GM would paint cars kind of gray and pink in the 50s, and I know this isn't a 50s car, but I felt like this color is not completely out of line. This is the restoration replacement windshield that came, and I just kind of glued it in place with a little bit of automotive trim adhesive. Just glues plastic to metal and it doesn't really damage either one. Here we are drilling it out for the tap. I'd never done this before. I did two of these at the same time where I drilled them out for the tap, and I was surprised at how, I guess it was kind of simple. I didn't do a lot of detail on this car because since it's a really old, casting and a really old model, I felt like if I did too much detail on it, it would not keep the mojo of being an old vintage toy. It'd be too custom. So I did do the grill because the grill would have came, painted or chromed from the factory. And the only other thing I did were the taillights here. And the first thing I did was I hit it with a little bit of chrome to back up the the taillights, because the taillights would have chrome bezels. Here we are tapping out the holes. I put a little bit of chapstick on the tap. I don't know if I've seen people kind of lubricate the tap a little bit, and I didn't. Around the house, just kind of looking for some stuff to use, and there we had some chapstick, and I was like, well, that's probably got petroleum jelly in it, right? So a little bit of this is out of order, but there it is. Now here we are reassembling it, and that interior just pops on that back rivet, and this guy pops together, and I use these Torx style little bitty 256 screws because it looked a little more like rivets. I get that a lot of people were doing that, so I thought that they were right. I thought that was probably a good thing. I didn't paint the screws. I could have, but I didn't. So here it is, as it was, beat up and scratched up and not bent, not broken, but just not in great shape. The bumper was a little bent there on the right-hand side, you can see. Here it is in primer. You can see all the good detail. The lines of the car were great. Here it is after I used a ultrafine Sharpie on the tail lights, and here are a second one that I had just sitting around that doesn't have a cracked windshield or anything, but this is the one I tore apart first. Suspension looks good. I did cut the tow hook off. I know some people that makes you mad, but I'm sorry. I think the paint turned out really great. I didn't even clear coat it. I was going to clear coat it, and then it looked so good that it was fine. The base, I kind of kept it a little slightly rustic. And I hope you enjoyed the restoration. And thanks.